ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Fateh. Wajid Khalsa, Wajid Fateh. Ravinder Singh here, joining you from Columbus for another session, Code Gurbani. Uh, uh, we had started talking about the Lama, as we call them, uh, that are on page 773, I believe, of the Guru Granth Sahib, and we were last week trying to link them to the marriage ceremony, the Anand Karaj, as we call it, and trying to draw lessons from these four passages as to what they might mean. And some of the highlights that I just want to recap from the first meeting was that we talked about this as a Parvarti Marg, which is really the path to change or parivartan, or even a path of preparedness to get ready. And so the question was to get ready for what? And it's really to get ready to establish oneself in dharma, uh, as per the first passage that we considered. And it also indicated that the goal was sahaj, from which anand spontaneously arises. We also spent a little bit of time trying to consider the meaning of the word Laav itself. And I had indicated that I'd come across I'd come across two meanings that were kind of opposed to each other, but I had never really taken the time to really look up what the real meaning of the word was. Um, so the two meanings that were available to us were to break away or to come together. And we had people who were on both sides of the meaning. But I think, fortunately, Ranaveer ji very kindly looked up the Shabad, uh, the dictionary, and sent us a little. Uh, I think he sent something to Harvinder, who passed it on to me, which gives us some level of authority behind the meaning of the word from Paisa Pai Khan Singh Nava. And the meaning, according to him, is Tolan di Kriya, which means the activity of breaking away. And it so happens that I did find the word in the Sanskrit dictionary. And the Sanskrit dictionary says pretty much the same thing. It uses the word truncation, to break off, to cut off. So the question would be, what are we cutting off and what are we breaking away from? And I would venture that we are trying to break away from our established patterns of and habits of thinking and doing and actions. So the I think the first passage was really a declaration of an intention to change in order to establish ourselves with Dharam, or to be one with Dharam, to have a relationship with Dharam, essentially. And we have obviously taken these passages to try and derive meanings for our outer lives, to see how they apply, because we also all agree that there is a symbiotic relationship that goes on between our inner and outer lives. So that's how we considered the first one, the first passage or the first law. So today we'll spend some time doing the second one. So what's happened? I mean, the first one, we have expressed our resolve, we have made the intention, hopefully we've made the commitment that we are going to get on this path. And then what happens? And of course, the guru is to be our guide in doing that. And so now we come to the second party, which I will first read through, and then we'll go over it line by line, and I'll try and level set it as best as I can, and then reach out to you. So here goes. हर दूजड़ी लाऊं सतगुर पुरख मिलाया बलराम जियो निर्भव पह मन होए हमें मैल गवाया बलराम जियो निर्मल भाव पाया हर गुण गाया हर वेख राम हदूरे हरि आत्म राम पसारिया स्वामी ਸਰਬ ਰਿਆ ਭਰਪੂਰੇ अंतर बाहर हर प्रभ एको मिल हर जन मंगल गाए जन नानक दूजी लाग चलाई अनहद शब्द बजाए. So Har Dujadi Lam, in the second round, Satgur Purkh Milaya. That's the key message as I gather it. Satgur Purkh Milaya. What happened when I found the Satguru? The Satguru Purkh Milaya brought me into a relationship with my Purkh or my higher self. Now, Purkh is a synonym for Prabh or Hari. I think of it as your inner self, your higher self. So what happened is that when I came into contact with the Sadguru and received the guidance, the Sadguru helped me to discern my own higher self, and I achieved a sense of integration because we started from the point that we were somehow split or schizophrenic. Then what happens is nirbhav pe man hoye haume mail gavaya. So the key here is haume mail gavaya, which means that as a result of my becoming whole or becoming in union with my higher self, I dropped my egocentric view of things. In other words, the ego was dropped and my perspective was transformed, and I became nirpao. Nirpao, man hua. So the word nirpao, of course, is being without fear. The word pa is interesting. I've found that it also means fear, uh, but it's also used in a sort of a positive sense. It is also a quality that has to be inculcated, which is, uh, the difference between Pa and Pao. One being the fear that an ego feels, and the other being a Pa, which is more like a restraint or drawing a boundary or having a sense of sort of boundary and restraint. So there's a difference between the two pairs here. But here it's saying that because my haume, I dropped my haume, my ego, I basically dropped my fears as well. Because as we know, they go hand in hand. Because the minute you're in ego, you're also in fear. And it could be fear of a whole lot of things in the world. I mean, on housing, because we are not in control. We want a predictable, certain uh, outcome of things, future. And all of these things are things that we have very little control over. So the ego is in constant fear. But with this integration with my higher self or union, I've become one with my higher self. My perspective has changed. The prism that I wear and with which I see through to the world has changed. And I find that I've dropped all fears. Why? Because in the next line he says, Nirmal bhav paya, har gun gaya, har vikha, ram hadure. So here is a discovery of sorts. Again, Nirmal Pao is again an emphasis that this Pao, this fear, because I can't think of another English word for this, but this fear is Nirmal, the literal meaning of which is pure, which I don't find very satisfactory, but I can't think of any other. It's like the fear that a child might have of a parent. When you're afraid of some other entity, you might be making designs to sort of get rid of that person or thing or whatever it might be. But when you're afraid of your parents, you're not sort of thinking those sort of things. I mean, there is a certain respectful boundary that you have with your parents, or at least I did anyway. So here again, the emphasis nirpo, nirmal paya, har gun gaya. So with the assimilation of these guns, these virtues, my fear, was of a pure nature. The fear here is in relation to the Creator, Har Gun Gaya. And then what happened is, as I was assimilating Har Gun Gaya, what happened is Har Vikhe Ram Hadure. this realization dawned on me that this entity that we call Ram, I shouldn't even call it an entity, but this is basically, there is a oneness that is spread all across. It is everywhere. And then it goes on to say, Har Atam Ram Pasarya, Swami Sarabhraya Bharpure, which is more or less saying the same thing as the previous line, Har Atam Ram, Atam being yourself, basically, and Ram Pasarya means spread out. Swami is the Lord. Sarabhraya Bharpure is basically permeating everything. So again, as I see it, a repetition of that. This is what happens when you meet the Satguru, which is being defined in the very first lines, Satgur Purkh Milaya, and I meet my Purkh. These are the sort of realizations that are going through. So this is being obviously spoken from a higher dimension, not from the dimension that we are operating in, more or less. And then it goes on to say, Antar Bahar Har Prab Eko Mil Harjan Mangal Gaye. And when this realization dawned upon me, Mangal Gai is basically reaching a state of Mangal, of course, is singing songs of celebration, but the meaning, the point here is that you get to that stage where you are in a state of sada vigas, or flowering or blooming. That's what happens. You're in a state of constant vigas. And then in the end, Jan Nanak Duji Laav Chalai Anhad Sabad Vajai. Again here, Nanak is addressing himself as a Jan, and the Duji Laav Chalai Anhad Sabad. Again, sounds are heard or experienced. It's an explanation of a dimension that has no time and space. In other words, that's how I see this Pankti, that taking the instruction of the Sadguru, these are the sort of things, when I meet my higher self, I'm beginning to see dimensions that are not otherwise available to me. I will not spend more time on this. This is how I have understood this second Laav. What I want to do is open it up to discussions. Last week, we did talk about, what that means in relationships, particularly in relationships between a husband and a wife, because when you think about it, it is perhaps the most significant relationship that you can have in your life. And so a lot of attention and care is, I think, just necessary in trying to build this and sustain this relationship. So I would invite each one of you to try and connect, not to go around in circles with what's being said here, but to try and connect it with how does this relate to us as we live here in this world, and what is the relationship between the inner and the outer here. So with that said, let me go to Chetandeep. Now, each one of you, please be mindful of time. I'm going to give you 5 minutes each, and hopefully that will be more than adequate for you to provide a response. So Chetandeep, let's start with you.
Anjivirji, thank you so much for going over the second Laav. I have 3 things to share. 2 are just my comments and 1 is a question. So the first thing that I noticed when you were going over or describing the second Laav, what I noticed that you were using the active voice throughout to describe, like, I dropped my ego, or I dropped my fear, or I became one with my higher self. Whereas I felt while reading this particular Laav, and even the previous, that at least the way I look at it is Guru Sahib is using passive voice everywhere, like Diraya, Tajaya, Milaya. It's not like he's doing something like Main Vikhya, but he's like, do it, Milaya, and Diraya. So at least in my head, the language makes a very powerful shift. So throughout in our life, instead of using the active voice, giving more impetus to I, passive voice. And I think that helps at least me break an attachment to I. So I read all of this as a passive voice, especially the words like Milaya, Gvaya. The second thing that I think what I picked up is the Nirmal Pau. And the way I read that word is like I can translate it as respect, respect for, as you said, your parent, or Nirmal is like when there is no mal, like there's no home. So basically, the respect that you have when you are not full of yourself, right? So, and I see that happening in my own life, as you said, share your personal experiences. So I think if I just talk about my own life, I respect my wife, and I'm not always thinking about myself, my needs, but taking equal care or even more care, like har gun guy, right? If I can see the gun or qualities of my spouse, I think eventually I'll be able to translate that into seeing the gun of Hari. I think that's the way, because Hari is not something that happens in vacuum. He is here and now in a relationship. The third thing, I have a question. The first line, I am not 100% sure if the word Satgur Purak is uh, should be read together or separately, in the sense like uh, Satgur ne Purak nu milaya, ya, or I met Satgur Purak. And the reason I say that is, in the first Laav, it was said that Satgur Gur Pura Arado. So we were doing the Aradhana of Satgur. We were basically either requesting Satgur that, I want to meet you. And in the second Laav, I actually met Satgur. Not that Satgur made me my higher self, but I just met Satgur itself. And that's the question. Back to you.
Um, Thank you, Chetandeep. Well, about being in an active voice, I mean, I guess I'm full of myself, so maybe that's why I kind of talk the way I do. But point well taken. I read it as Satguru is the one that gives you the gyan of the Purakh, right? That is why we go to the Satguru first. You have to essentially get the knowledge, and then that is how you kind of. But that's how I read it. But your point is well taken. And as far as personal, I mean, respecting one's wife and so on, I'd like to add. I mean, I at times really think of my wife as, in many ways, being my guru, in the sense of teaching me a lot of things about myself. And I'm glad that she's not anywhere near me, so she's not hearing me say this. But I do think that way. I think that she is holding a mirror to me. She's kind of showing me all of the things about me that are very annoying and irritating, and are open to improvement. So yes, I do believe that our human relationships are in fact mirrors to each other. But do appreciate your comments. Thank you. Let's see who we have here. Kulwant Kaur Benji.
I think I missed the first one, but let me see. I think you well explained. In terms of relationship, as you said that how significant, what's the significance of this in our real life as we start, a couple starts a new life, so it provides like a roadmap, a blueprint for how we should live together a fulfilling married life. And as Chetanji mentioned that, he talked about the words, the vocabulary that it says Satgur Purkh Milaya or Hame Mal Gavaya Nirpa Paya. So when we walk on the first, this is like, I feel like it's steps. The first lam is the first step, and the second lam is the second step. Once you completed the first step, then you reach the second step where you meet Satguru Satpurik. And when you meet the Satguru Satpurik, then you lose the, your Hame Mal and Nirmal Pa. It's kind of, as he said, that it's respect. We have, then we get that kind of respect for each other, and also for Vaiguruji and for everyone, and realize that he is all around. Like he's on a Vaigruda Pasara everywhere. Then we realize that, and I mean that's like it's like you accomplish the purpose of human existence together. That's, I think, what it came to my mind a little bit. Yeah, that's all I want to share.
Haji. Thank you, Ji. Yeah, no, Chetandeep raises a good point about whether it is Satpur, but my sense is that in the first passage, the injunction is to actually, engage with the with knowledge, which to me suggests that it is the Guru that is available to us, as Guru Granth Sahib let us say. And then once you do that, that leads you to the Satguru that is inside or not in that space. And that Satguru then takes you to the Purukh, because the word Purukh, as far as I can recall, I could be wrong, has come alongside Prabh and Har in many ways. So I read Purukh to be your own higher self, to be the Prabh inside of you, or the Har. But again, I could be wrong. Let's go to Ekokar Kaurji and see what she might have to say.
Vaiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji. I was.
So you have 5 minutes, so don't cut off early, okay?
Don't cut off early.
Yeah, don't like you gave us like less than a minute the last time, so you have 5 minutes.
Okay. So I was blessed to do a translation of the Laav for a friend of mine many years ago, and I did it as a gift for her wedding. And the things that from the experience of translating and the poetry of it. First, this is a ceremony. Like, this is an initiating ceremony, and the invocation of Balaramjio, I think, is so important, and we skip over it a lot. But Ram is if we get out of what it means in a cultural sense, Rama is the sun and the moon, and so marriage is this balance and dance between the sun and the moon energy, the masculine and the feminine, and so we're Balaramjio, we're calling on that archetypal idea of how we can create union and balance with each other. And the ceremony is calling our consciousness into a new state of being. So the poetry to me is very ceremonial, very initiating, very sacred. Like, all Shabad is sacred, but there was something about the Laav that really struck me in it being a Shabad that was forging something. You are going into this round, Balaramjio. This is what you're going to get from the experience, Balaramjio. You're the Guru's pounding the psyche and making something new through the journey. And the first round, it's really about commitment. It's like the first step you've got to take is you've got to commit. You've got to commit to family life. You've got to commit to a dharmic path. You've got to be willing to do the work. Nothing can happen without commitment. Commitment is the beginning. And, even though people might physically make the journey around the Guru 4 times when they get married, you can see, like, is the consciousness really engaged in the ceremony? Because people will do the Laav and then go off, and they're not living a dharmic life. They don't care about dharma. It's a cultural thing. Well, I'm Punjabi, so I'm going to get married this way. But they haven't even entered the first round yet of being committed to using family life as a place to practice dharma. So the consciousness, these 4 rounds to me are the journey that the consciousness has to go through. And first you got to have commitment. And if you don't have commitment, that's it. You're not even out of the first, you're not off first base, so to speak. Once I am committed, like once I'm really committed, like I am married, and this marriage will be a place of dharma, and I commit that that's what I'm going to do with my married life. Then the second stage can begin to unfold. And this, this notion of Satguru Purik Malaya, I believe myself that it means once you make a commitment, the Satguru is going to appear to you. And for me, the Satguru is Shabad. The Shabad brings me to my inner wisdom, but the Shabad is my guru. Like, I'm not my own guru. The Shabad is my guru. And that's my experience. But I'm not attached to what form it takes. But my commitment creates the space where I can meet my guru. And when I meet my guru, whatever form that is, Balram Jio, then my guru is going to give me these gifts of taking away my fear, clearing the dirt of my ego, giving me deep respect for God in place of my fear. And my job is to keep, singing the praises. And when I do, I'm going to get to see that HUD. And that HUD is inside of me. That divine essence is inside of me. And when I see the HUD within me, then Ram Hadore, then I'm going to actually come into the presence of this Ram I'm invoking that's going to help me have balance with my partner. Because I can't be balanced with my partner if I'm scared, if I'm subconsciously clouded, and if I've got no respect for myself or anybody else. So all these things take place before I come into the presence of Ram. And, it goes on. I won't go through the whole thing, but I think this last line is also really critical, that what it brings us to is Anahad Shabad, the Anahad Shabad. The Anahad Shabad is the sound that we don't hear. And marriage to me is like 90% the sound my partner is making that he's not speaking out loud. I've got to be tuned into him and subtle and conscious of the Anahad Shabad. If I want to create the Ram, if I want to create the harmony and the balance with my polarity in marriage. So I think I may have taken up almost 5 minutes, and that will be my end.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think that I absolutely, I couldn't have put it better. I mean, I like the way you said, this is the emergence of an inner wisdom. You're creating the space. That space is occurring when you engage with Bani as we receive it through the Guru Granth Sahib. As you engage with that Bani, it'll gradually create that inner wisdom inside of you. And then from there emerges the rest of it that you've so beautifully described. And I love your analogy of the sound that we do not hear, because oftentimes that is where the problem is in everyday marriage, is not being receptive to what is not being heard. We want the other person to sort of spell it out, right? And yes, thank you, Ekunkarji. Ranavirji?
Hanji, Vaheguru Ji Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh Ji.
Okay, Ji.
The first point, I also looked at Bhai Veer Singh's Guru Granth Sahib Ghosh Onde which we the same the version is given that it is somehow breaking away. So anyways, I just wanted to
much appreciated, because I just sort of went to the Sanskrit dictionary and started looking for this with some care, and it is exactly what you're saying. And the word they've used there is truncation, to truncate something, to stop something, to cut it off.
Yeah, coming back to that, uh, these are my tentative thoughts, and I'm here just to learn from, as everybody here is to learn from each other. One thing we need to be cautious that because a marriage ceremony we just talked about is sacred, so this thing is very sacred. I think because this Bani is sacred and we are using this Bani for that ceremony, ceremony becomes sacred, not the other way around. So we have to be careful that first our focus the Bani. It is very sacred to us wherever we apply, that aspect of activity becomes sacred. So that is because the comment came that marriage ceremony is sacred, yes. And the other thing is, I always I'm just thinking about that. Is this lesson, because we are using for our Nand Karaj, is it really lesson to a husband and wife to how to interact with each other? I think it's a lesson to both of them to merge with the one. Once both are merged with one, you are merged with each other too. So that is a process. It's not that you're working to merge with the other person, husband is merging with wife. It is both husband and wife. This whole story, the whole lesson is for the human soul to connect with the ultimate soul. If we become, husband becomes one and the wife becomes one, ultimately you both become one. So this is the way I look at this. And then uh, uh, other point, what I was thinking was, the very first line, I think what Chetan Deep said is that Satgur is separate from Purkh, and I'm not very clear what Purkh is, and I call Purkh as my true self. And Satgur has been referred many times in Gurmani as an Vichola, as an intermediate. So when I read the first Lam and the second Lam, the process is for us to get away, separate out ourselves from the bondage of Maya. And to do that, we have to seek the help of Satgur. What Satgur is? Satgur, and I'm not sure about that, what Satgur is, but what I know, the path to connect with Almighty is through Satgur. And where is Satgur? I don't know. I still wondering about that. But I think it's the Hardujni Lam Satgur made me aware of my true in self, which is Purakh, Malaya Balramji. So once I start to realize my true inner self, then I think you said that my home was dissipated and I became nirpo. I thought I would thinking the other way around, that once I connected with myself, inner self, I became, my fear became, the mind which was fearful became nirpo, and because it became nirpo, then home came down. It's not because home came down we became nirpo. I would say that the mind which was very fearful, because I realized my inner self, it became fearless. Because that fearless, I challenged home mal went down, and then I got to understand gun and Hadur. He's present everywhere. And as you said that he's Pasaria, he's created everything, and he is in that, the whole world we think. So this is the way I thought that we should, when we try to say, in fact, I also made a presentation in Seattle in one of the weddings. They said, can you translate that? And my point was that, yes, I'm speaking on that, but I'm not telling both husband, bride, and a groom to be connected. I'm telling, as I understand, if you both connect that vertically up, eventually you will connect horizontally to each other. That's my take on that, please.
Thank you, Virji. Just a couple of quick points. I mean, you said that, the relationship between Nirpao and Haume, you're quite, I mean, the way I see it is, these are not, to me at least, these are not sequential events. So Haume, the dropping of one's Haume and becoming Nirbhav, to me, these things happen quite simultaneously. So I think that's the only difference. So to me, the sequence is really not of any consequence, what happens first or second, because we can never really discern that. It's just that to me, these things will happen together. when you so that's one thing. And the other, to your point about this is not union with one another, I don't think that is what is being suggested at all. If anything, this, as Ekonkarji said, this is two ego-bound individuals who have sort of undertaken to take what is otherwise a very solitary spiritual journey together. And then in the process, as you said in your last comment, that they transcend it and become one in some senses, or at least of one thought, right? So, and so I just wanted to clarify that to me, it is not a sequence or a linear progression from one to the other. It is just simultaneous. Now, let me see. I need to go to Gurjeet Singh Virji. Gurjeet Singh Virji.
I just heard the last one as well, which was done by you. So that's my intake. For me, the word live is more like a love, because as we did in the Bhavanakari, lalla aise live man lave, anatana jai param sach pave. Or jo taha prem live lave, to Allah lahe. So it's more in the sense of a live, or lagav, how a mind get attached to its mood, or man buddhi get attached to its mood. The one thing in this wedding is that normally the boy side go to girl side, but here the girl side has to come to the boy side because Satgur is in the Hirda. Satgur doesn't move, Hari doesn't move, it's the other way around. So that's one of the main difference in this. Even Kabir ji, when he has written that Kau Gauri Dulani Mangalchara, there also the Buddhi is saying that power lehu, that I'm going around my mool. So this is the main difference because this is spiritual one. And as Chetanji was saying, it's Drido and Arado in the first Laav was more for us to do, because otherwise it's written with an Uda. There are differences. Aradho tujhe Swami apne. That is when he is doing himself. But when he's saying Aradho, that means also it's read as Aradho still, but it is basically the earth will always be in the second person. So he's just telling us that how he has achieved and how we have to achieve it. So they are both independent because in the first one, Satgur Gur Pura Aradho. As the Sadgur Gurpura has done it, we have to do the same way, because if he's written by fourth, the third one has done the same thing. Jan Nanak Kahe Laav Pehli Aramb. That is how the first who has to go through the process of reading Gurbani or Vedbani from somewhere, they have achieved the same thing as Taram Drido. But in the Dujdi Laav, there's a Satgur who can tell me. And there are a few lines I can quote that Updesh kare gur satgur pura, gur satgur parupkarya jiyo. He will give me that direction. He has only to give me direction, rest is to be done by me. Satgur pura je mile. If you can get a pura Satgur, paiye ratan bichar. He will only interact. There's a line when Bhagat Ramanand says, so Brahma batayo gur man hi mahe. Batayo, he only tells him, but then you have to find for yourself. So Hari, when you want to get in connection with the Hari, which is our mool, you can be lucky to meet a Pura Satgur, and then your Ram gets a state of enlightenment. Bali Ram Jiyo. The Balwal gets in about 3 different forms. It's also for burning, it's also for power, and it's also Balbal Jaun. It comes in the same sense when the spelling's the same. Nirpo Paiman Hoy. Then that's the instruction is helping me to go to that direction. Home Mel Gavaya. Balramji, this is how the Ram is getting enlightened, because part of it ahead Home is going. Then the same Brahm is progressing from one khand to the other. Nirpo Paya Harigun Gaya. Hari Vekhe Ram Hajur. Before he was told there is Ram inside you, now he could visualize the Ram within him. The same person. Hari Atam Ram Pasarya Swami. That Hari is Atam Ram. That is, now I understand that he is in everyone. Sarvareha Parpure. He's trying to fulfill or enlighten everyone, but until Sadguru tells you, there is no way we can know it. Antarbar har prabheko. Now I realize that the mind who was to merge with the mind, with the mole, he's the part of the same game. He came out of the mole, Harijan Mangal, Mil Harijan Mangal guy. Now they are together. The Buddhi and, or you can say Man and Mula together, then Mil Harjan. That's how they are now together. They are integrated. Now they are doing the same thing as Sadhguru Gurpura Radhu in the first one. That's how Jan Nanak Duji Laav Chalai. That's how the Buddhi started to move towards inside. And the ultimate stage is Anhat Shabd Bajai. In the other line was Sajanand Vabad Bhagi Man Har Har Meetha. The second Har is the Shabad Guru. Here also Anhat Shabd Bajai. The action is complete in either one or in the two. That's my understanding. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa.
Thank you, Veji. Thank you. Appreciate your input here. I think I've missed Bajwa. Is he still on?
Hello.
Thank
Thank you for making a good, making it simplified this time. I don't have any comments, but I have two questions. I'm still very confused with the meaning of Laav, which has been given by various people as, on one hand, we are saying it is Todna, and on the other hand, the whole Anand Karaj, Jida, as I understand a little bit, it is actually joining with Akal Purakh. ਤੇ ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਤੋੜਨਾ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਜੋੜਨਾ so I don't know whether what is the true meaning, ਪਰ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਅੱਜ ਵਾਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੂਸਰੀ ਲਾਮ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਹਰ ਦੂਜੜੀ ਲਾਮ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਪੁਰਖ ਮਿਲਾਇਆ, ਹੁਣ ਲਾਮ ਔਰ ਮਿਲਾਇਆ would probably tell me that it is joining rather than todna. So I would appreciate if everybody or anybody can clarify that. And second is a question about Purakh. Isn't Purakh reflecting the Karta Purakh, the Akal Purakh, pi minu Guru ne o Purakh milata hai? It's a question. I don't know.
ठीक है जी. We will do the second round, and I would ask each one of you to try and address the question that Bajwaveji has raised. I think some of us have commented on their opinions about whether what Purakh is and whether Satguru and Purakh should be read together. But it's a valid question. As far as Laav is concerned, yes, we've been dealing with two meanings. There are dictionary meanings which suggest that it is to break away. And if I were to see it as break away, then it is breaking away from my established habits, my conditioning, my halme. On the other hand, Veer Gurjeet Singh Ji has been suggesting that it is lagao, how to attach oneself to one's mood. Now, to be quite honest with you, as far as I'm concerned, both make equal sense to me. So sometimes we cannot have certitude, but we have to live with this sort of dual meaning. At least I'm quite happy living with both the meanings, but I'll let the others speak for themselves. Chetandeep Ji?
Anjali, thank you. I picked up on a couple of things that I want to share, and these are not exactly what Bajwa Viji's questions are. But the first thing that I want to point out that I picked up on Ranavirji's point, that he said that what makes it sacred is the Gurbani and not the marriage itself is not sacred. I actually would like to differ from that in just saying that from where I'm standing, I think everything around us is sacred, be it relationships, be it nature, be it anything. Gurbani or not, I mean, the nature, the universe around us, the world around us is sacred. That's the point of view where I am standing. The second thing I want to maybe add a little I'm going to take a liberty here, and please forgive me. I'm going to take a little diversion and just add something which is not directly related, but maybe we could discuss it after week 4. So actually when Ekamkarji was speaking, he made a couple of comments that triggered something in me, and that is, he said family life as a ground for the spiritual thing. And also she made a comment saying people get married and then just go off to live their lives, take this just as a ceremony. So what I would like to have a discussion around maybe after week 4 is the topic of divorce. I mean, we have these Char Lama and we are getting married as Sikh people. And this is little personal to me because I see friends around me who had Anand Karad and they get divorced. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because A, it's a very taboo topic in our community. B, it's not a simple question. It doesn't have a simple answer. It's what if the relationship is abusive? There are so many practical realities and complexities and sufferings in a relationship. So how does these Char Lama and Gurbani guide us on that topic? It's something we could talk about later.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. We'll certainly come back to that at some point. Ekamkarji,
Yes, Chi.
final thoughts.
Well, I think I just want to really, Chetan Singh. I think if we're gonna talk about the Lavan and the relation, like the real relationship with marriage, I think that what you just brought up is really important. And the one thought I would offer right now is that it comes back to the question of, I don't think the ceremony is that you walk around the Guru 4 times in front of the Sangat and you've done the Anand Cottage. I think that the consciousness has to at least get engaged onto the first step of committing to a dharmic life. And I think there's a lot of misalignment in that if there isn't a commitment from both people to live that dharmic life, have you really done the Anand Cottage? And if you haven't, then what's divorce anyway? I think it's a really important topic, and that's my final thought.
Thank you. I think that's a good point. If you haven't done the Anand Cottage, what is a divorce anyway? I like that. Yes. Kulwant Kaur Pedji, any final thoughts?
Hanji, Vijay, one thing I just want to add on, like you said, Vijay pointed out that how come it is, ek passe todna te duje passe jodna hega. I just remember, I think, I remember Bulle Shadi Kafi ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਬੁੱਲਿਆ ਰੱਬ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਪਾਉਣਾ ਇਧਰੋਂ ਪੁੱਟਣਾ ਤੇ ਉਧਰ ਲਾਉਣਾ, like you said, breaking away from your ego self and connecting and merging into your mood. That's what I think, and I also agree with Ekamkarji too. When we do these lama, because this is basically we do it cultural. This is a cultural event. We don't really understand the meaning of the lama.
Yes.
That's how that's because we don't understand. That's ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ divorce ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Thank you.
No
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Benji. Ranaveer ji, final thoughts?
One comment and one question I have. I think you answered very well, and even Kulwant Penji answered the question which was posed there. Coming back to Chetan Deep's comment, and really appreciate that. And I sit back and think about that. So my counter question would that be back to Chetan Deep, that if everything is sacred around us, then the Maya is sacred, then why the Gurbani is there? Gurbani is telling us to transcend this Maya. If the Maya is sacred, everything is sacred, then I have to sit back and think on that. So I'll leave it there on that question for you to reflect and let me know. And then I have one question for Gurjeet Virji, because you were mentioning Satgur. Can you explain when you come back here, difference between Satgur and Mool? Because I just need some clarification, because you made point Satgur they threw on, but who is the Satguru who is going to connect us with Mool? So I just want to have that clarity. If you can answer that one, please.
Haji Gurjeet Virji, you have a little less than 5 minutes to explain that to Rana Virji and whatever else you want to say.
I'll try my best. If you read in Savaiye, this is Satguru Nanak Bhakti Kari Kaman, Tanumantan Gobind Diyo. So he's trying to tell that why we call Nanak as Satguru. Nanak is not Guru, as per Gurbani. In general language, we call him because it's more prevalent. But when you read strictly by rules, we cannot call him Guru. He is Satguru, and it is clearly said that he has to do Bhakti when he came here. So when he did a Bhakti, he became Pura Satguru. And then he started advising. So there is a Satguru inside us. And in Asa Kivar also is Guru Nanak, I think he writes, Bin Satgur Kinena Payo, Bin Satgur Kinena Paya. The advice has to come from Satgur because he has already obtained that state. So it doesn't make, there is one Pura Satgur. Satgur Purkh is Pura Satgur. There is Satgur inside me, which is a Adhura Satgur. He has to become Pura, but he has to get an advice from another Satgur. It's almost like, two people in the hospital, one is doctor, another is a patient. So the doctor is treating the patient, and they're both humans. So we all have Satgur in us. Satgur te khali ko nahi, it says. But then is our Satgur Pura. Guru Nanak and all the Progressive Pura Satgur, they can advise us. So is that what Rana Virji was looking for?
Haji, Tika, if you can carry on with any other observations you might have.
There is nothing like Anand Karj word. It's all we came later. The word Bya is described in Gurbani. Bya hua mare babla gurumukhe har paya. So that's the obtaining the Hari is what is known as Bya. And Kabirji says, Kaho Kabir mohe byahe chale hain purkh ek Bhagwan na. So he's addressing himself from a Purna Buddha that now I'm attached and getting merged into the Shabad Guru. He's mentioning that thing over there. So because we know he's a male himself, but in that Shabad he says, Byahe chale hain. And Purkh ek Bhagwan na is there, already a male word. So he has to be saying himself that he's a Purna Buddha. So that's my intake on these words.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much. Well, it's almost time. And I want to thank each one of you for coming on. Appreciate the input and the stimulating discussion. We will continue with this discussion next week with the third party. And in the meantime, all of you have a great week. And we will talk to you next Wednesday. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.